What's up, guys? So I have, for I think about the last 3 months, have been averaging close to around, I would say, 10 commits a day. Some days higher, some days lower. So as you can see, like 24 commits on Christmas Day, even for example. So let's try and find Christmas Day. 20th, 24th, 27 contributions on Christmas Day, 32 on December 31st, 29 on January. I like you could clearly see the skyrocketing in terms of productivity and in terms of commits and in terms of the amount of code I've been producing throughout as soon as around the time Opus came out. So Claude 4.5 Opus. I have videos about how 4.5 Opus is amazing, 4.5 Opus versus Sonnet, blah blah blah. But this video specifically, I want to show you guys how essentially I've been building out my workflows and how I've been able to produce a lot of apps, a lot of different apps actually. I've almost been able to build like I would say 3 or 4 apps a month. And these are like fully production grade apps and these are mostly being built not to sell but basically test and hone my skills because each app that I build, I get better and I learn more. So my background is 6 years in software engineering. I started coding when I was 11 and then I actually worked professionally for 6 years. My background is in comp sci. I've done front end, back end, infra, Terraform, AWS. I've done it all. And now I am a big believer and proponent on Claude Code. Now, I'm going to show you guys the full setup. And I mean literally my life cycle and workflow. So I have a code base and I call this the free code base. This is one of my code bases where I basically build free apps. And I'm gonna break down exactly how I set it up. So my framework of choice is always Next.js and Tailwind. Next.js because LLMs are extremely good at TypeScript and JavaScript, and Tailwind because again for whatever reason LLMs are really good at styling with Tailwind. I think it's primarily because Tailwind's a very ultra popular CSS framework, and a lot of the training data that Claude and Codex uses is probably based on that. So after I set up my Next.js app, I typically set up. I'm not going to open my .env file, so don't worry. I typically set up a Claude.md file, which is what you guys are looking at, and this basically references the best practices, how this code base is structured, and I actually get Claude to write this, so you don't necessarily have to write this yourself. But then I define rules, I define like objective goals, I define the commands to use, and alongside this Claude.md, I'll also install my go-to, so Next.js, Postgres. I think the ORM of choice is Prisma. Prisma, I think it's Prisma, with Drizzle as the CLI to use it on. And then for depending on what I'm building, I usually need like some sort of email service, so there's Resend for that. I usually need some sort of like background workers, so I believe for the background worker, I just run a Node.js server, and then there's a bunch of other stuff like Redis, whatever it is. I generally get the LLM to ideate on the tech stack because again, you have to understand, you got to use technologies that the LLM fully understands. So what better way to get the technologies the LLM understand than just asking the LLM itself? So that's what I do. And then after I set up my Claude.md, I scaffold a basic application. I set up authentication. So for example, in this app, I actually ended up using NextAuth. I know a lot of people are using Clerk. One thing I want to build my free app is the whole idea is to build free software for the world, right? And to build free software, I can't use things like Clerk. I can't use things like Resend. Actually, I use my own email infrastructure for this specific app. So I'm using NextAuth because it's free. Because then I don't have to pay. If I don't have to pay for integrations, then I don't have to charge the user. That's my ideology and thought process for this code base. And the way I interact with Claude Code is actually through Whisperflow is one of the apps, but like there's a bunch of transcription apps. So I'll be like, hey, Claude Code, I want you to build me a scaffold Next.js app and use Postgres as the database, Prisma as the ORM. This app will require an email service, but we want to host our own email service. So ideate on how we can do that. So then it transcripts and it automatically types it up for me. I do not actually type anything anymore. I say it's about 70-30. 70% of the time I'm chatting with Claude Code. 30% of the time I'm typing. I actually, by the way, don't even open files anymore. I don't see the need to. The way I make sure my code quality is met, I actually set up CI/CD pipelines. And in these CI/CD pipelines, I set up functional tests end-to-end tests, and I also set up basic linting. And these linting rules are going to be extremely important to maintain code quality. The CI/CD functional pipelines, functional testing pipelines, will maintain the fact that the code actually works when it hits production. And then I even have the pipeline automatically run database migrations. So everything end to end is automated. And even me putting up my PR, I actually have a safe PR skill. So I literally created a skill, by the way. You can create skills in Claude Code, which effectively are functions. You can basically write a function that does the same thing over and over. And Safe PR basically creates a PR for me. So when I'm done implementing something, I have a bunch of coding changes. I don't even put up the PR myself. I just call my Safe PR skill, and it'll create a PR against main. And by the way, I always run my Claude Code in bypass mode. I always enable, let me remove this. I always enable thinking, and I always switch, I always use the Opus 4.5. That's because I have the $240 model, so obviously I don't run out of tokens. And so I know a lot of people will have that issue, but the difference between 4.5 Opus and Sonnet is just so big that it doesn't make sense. By the way, I don't really use MCP, and here's why. I found that in bypass mode, it has access to the same terminal commands that you would have access to, which effectively works as an MCP. Obviously, MCP gives you additional access. It gives you like read-only access so you can scope it. But I find that having the flexibility to use the same CLI tools that a human would use, giving it to Claude Code, works 100 times better. Now, I understand the risks, okay? Claude Code having your CLI to, for example, Stripe is pretty dangerous. So I get it. But again, if you only set up your sandbox Stripe environment or only set up your Railway staging environment, then you're pretty safe. But I'm not going to lie. Sometimes they give it straight up prod Railway access. It is what it is. It has done some funky stuff before, and I have regretted it. But then again, like once I learn the gimmicks, I can document it in Claude.md. Obviously, it doesn't always respect Claude.md, but it minimizes it by quite an amount. And in fact, I actually, and this is extremely dangerous, and I fully get it, but I don't care. I actually let it read my .m files too. Okay, a lot of people are going to cringe at that, but I find that it's just so much more productive. Like it could debug issues. Like it'll literally find issues that like, oh, missing environment variable in the .m file. It'll find issues like that. It has full context. It has access to everything. It will pick it up and be like, okay, this is your error. This is how you fix it. But I try and get Claude Code to do all of it on purpose because I'm trying to act as more of a product person, more of a design partner, and I'm letting Claude Code do the actual development. And I'm literally forcing myself to do this because I do have the urge to go and write code, but the moment I start writing code, it completely kills the system. This whole system where I'm acting as a design partner and the product person and then letting Claude Code do the coding. So in between tasks, there's obviously 10 to 50, maybe even 20-minute wait times. And that's when I boot up RuneScape. And I'm not even shitting you. I literally, in between my Claude sessions, I literally play RuneScape in between. And that helps me pass time. And it actually helps me stay productive. Because one thing that I find a lot of people, they get antsy, they get super anxious, they get super jittery, they want to like, control everything. And that's because there's like a 15, 20-minute wait period between each session, which freaks people out. So having something to do in between sessions is literally the strategy, the key here. By the way, I have a RuneScape channel. If you search up Abir RS, ABIR RS, on YouTube, that's my RuneScape channel, but that's, again, different story entirely. But I actually play in between. I create a system, schedule task, play RuneScape, come back in 10 minutes, schedule task, play RuneScape. That's how I've been putting out 20, 30 PRs a day. My maximum PR day was, not PR commits, but my maximum commits in one day was, I think, almost like 53. If we look through all of them, I believe the highest one's 53. And this isn't like, these are actual really, really stable applications because I actually manually test my apps myself, and I highly recommend everybody do that. A lot of people will push their code but not test it, which is psychotic. Like, it's already psychotic to push your code without looking at it. That's debatable. I trust LLMs to, handle the code side of things, but me as the product and design person, I still need to click around and make sure the app works as intended. And every single time I do QA the app, I actually not only find bugs, it's not bugs that I'm actually looking for, it's bad UX. Claude Code is not that great on UX. UX meaning user experience. That is one of its biggest bottlenecks. And that's where I really, really find value in actually doing the QA and finding bad UX and then coming up and using Whisperflow. Hey, Claude, I found this button that doesn't make sense. I got confused myself when I was using it. I type that up, transcript it. I don't type that up, sorry. I speak it, Whisperflow transcripts it. Then I hit enter, and then I let Claude Code try again, go to RuneScape, play for 10, 15 minutes, let Claude do its thing, and then come back to Claude, and then do it again. And a lot of people, one more thing a lot of people are scared of is the compacting, right? Because Claude Code does tend to compact pretty often, pretty quickly. Every time I get to around 80% usage, I just compact myself before scheduling the next task. In fact, I actually compact myself before every task. And I try and create new sessions as much as I can. Because you have to understand, the way Claude works is really good at doing one task at a time. And when you reuse chat sessions, you're basically giving it multiple tasks at a time. Even though they're separate tasks, you're technically giving them multiple tasks sequentially. Rather, each chat is dedicated to one task, and every time you need to make an iteration or change in that task, compact before you continue. Because if you do not, then there is so much unnecessary context in there. Claude is really good at gathering its own context. And some people are so worried, oh my god, it's wasting tokens. Stop trying to save tokens, you idiot. Tokens is not your problem. You need to increase your productivity and output. Tokens is gonna become cheaper and cheaper. Claude Code and Anthropic will figure out how to make tokens almost redundant eventually. They will build the data centers and figure that part out. Your job is to make use of those tokens, not trying to save them. Your tokens being saved is not like dollars being saved in your bank account. Any token you don't use is gone. It disappears. And maybe you're running like 20 different apps, but I would much rather you focus on one app and do it very well than try and build 20 apps. And stop trying to save your tokens. Like, if tokens is really your problem, you need to upgrade your subscription. I get a lot of people will not have that luxury. At that point, I don't know what to tell you. It sucks to suck, but I really think if you really want to fully utilize Claude Code to the fullest extent, you need to stop saving tokens and you need to start going in deep and you need to start taking a product in UX stance and let Claude do the coding. It's literally called Claude Code. Let Claude do the coding. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. See you next one. Peace out.